Hello, Sumo fans. I know I am super, super late. John posted probably like 12 hours ago now. I need a little time to really digest that amazing final playoff between Wakatakakage and Takayasu. So here I am to give my 42 opinions. And let's start off at the top with Terunofuji. I wasn't too surprised that he didn't make it very far. I just had a feeling that it just wasn't enough time for his injuries to heal. And I'm pretty concerned about the fact that the way he's been protecting the injured knee is by placing the foot, I believe it's the right foot, in between to stabilize him, and now that foot is injured. And the thing about feet is that they take a very, very long time to heal. So we're going to have to see, is the dominant Terunofuji already done? Or is this just a minor setback and, dropping out of the tournament was a good thing and, he's going to recover? It's really, really hard to say because we have him on borrowed time as it is. So, it's unfortunate. I really hope we get to see more of him. I hope he does get a chance at all those titles that he wants to win. But if he hadn't dropped out, we would not have had the amazingly stormy basho that we had. It's kind of funny because March has always been called the stormy basho, but things have been so unstable and so crazy for so long that it's like, oh, okay, well, aren't they all kind of stormy? And then this tournament proved to be, in fact, the stormy basho. Which brings us to Shodai. What can I say about Shodai? So he starts off 0-4, and everybody had pretty much written him off. He's done. He's not going to be Ozeki anymore. I understood the sentiment, and I don't even want to say that I disagreed. But there was just a part of me that thought, are you really going to go down this way? And I have to be honest, I am shocked how it did end. I thought, it might be like what happened to Tochinoshin when Takakeisho essentially beat him on the last day and took his spot. So I thought maybe a 7-8 Shodai with like a really heartbreaking loss at the end. Did I expect him to go 8-1 and, basically beat all the toughest guys? I mean, here we've got, he loses to Daieisho, Takanosho, Ichinojo, Ura. These are all winnable matches. He beats Onosho. He loses to Tamawashi, and that's another winnable match. Then all of a sudden he goes on his tear. And Meisei, that was obvious. But Kiribayama, Hoshoryu, they were having pretty good tournaments. Takarafuji, I would expect him to beat him. Takakeisho, that's another conversation. But he did what he had to do. And then, the most impressive part of it all is that he finds a way to be a major part of the finale. And that's like the best thing you can do as an Ozeki. If you're not going to be in the playoff, if you're not going to be in the championship hunt, if you can be the guy who influences it or, affects it in some way, that's really like the next best thing. And I mean, he beat Takayasu and Wakatakakage, our two finalists, and winds up with a 9-6. So, kudos to Shodai. I have to say, I was really down on him, but that ending, he got some points from me. Because he did what he needed to do when he needed to do it. And he looked like the Ozeki at the end, far more so than the other two. And it does show you that Shodai's biggest problem is mental. Does it take him a while to get motivated? Does he need to have his back against the wall to show the true Shodai? That's a problem going forward, but at least for this tournament, he solved it. Which brings us now to probably our most troubled Ozeki, which is so unfortunate. A, I didn't expect to be saying that at the end of the tournament. B, as you all know, Takakeisho is my favorite. 8 and 7. And here's the interesting thing. So he loses on day 1, or he wins on day 1, he loses the next 2. Then he goes on a tear, and I fully expect him to be in the Yusho race. But you know, that very first day when he gave Ura that extra push and that extra slap, I sensed that something was wrong with his arm. I don't know if Ura pulled on it again. Because many of his wins right here in the middle, he was sort of like bulldozing people. He wasn't actually engaging in the pushing and thrusting. And so I figure that he is injured again, which is not good. And he was doing everything he could to sort of stay in it. And it was exciting and it was fun because you could see his heart. You could see, how much he wanted to, be Ozeki. And it worked out okay, but just barely. So we have Shodai, who started off like, oh, he's probably going to be 7 and 8. And Takakeisho, oh, he'll be fine. And Takakeisho just barely scrapes by at the end of the day. So, really, who is the Ozeki who really needs to go back to the drawing board? Shodai's got his problems, but Takakeisho's got more than one himself. One being that he can't stop getting injured. 2 being his stamina. You especially see it in the Takayasu match. Everybody knows, and everybody calls it out, even the commentators, that if Takakeisho doesn't blast you out in 3 seconds, he's done. I don't know if he can solve that problem, but if he can, he should. I don't know if there's a certain way to train where he can increase his endurance, but the reality is he probably is way too big for his height. And while that gives him the power, it kills the stamina and puts him in a position where he has to be so big to have the power that he's going to lack in everything else. So he needs sort of a revamp, but not a revamp that would change him too much, because I don't think he could go through that, and he can't become a brand new Rikishi. But he's going to need to do some soul searching. And he was very fired up this tournament. There was a lot of stares and punching of walls and bloody noses, and he definitely gave me the heart that I expected to see from him, but the results weren't there. And it's okay for now, if he can sort of glide along as Ozeki, but I don't think that's what he wants. And at this point, I will never stop rooting for him. I will have my blind optimism every single tournament. But in my heart of hearts, I don't think that he can ever become Yokozuna. I think he's really hit his ceiling. But I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong about that. So next we get to Mitakeumi. And here's where I might get myself into a little bit of trouble. But it is 42 opinions. So this is his debut at Ozeki. He was fantastic in the last tournament, and I was curious as to how he would go in this tournament, and boy, did he start off looking really, really dominant. And I thought for sure he was going to not only be in the title race, but probably, I thought he had a really good chance to win it with Terunofuji out. And then we see the Mitakeumi that has... There's a reason Mitakeumi took so long to become Ozeki. And it's the same reason that I don't think he's ready to be Yokozuna either. Excuse me. There is this off switch in him. And I want to be careful how I word it. But it comes across as laziness. Or a flippancy, like, I don't care. And you really see that in the final 2 matches. So on paper, Mitakeumi is 11-4. Looks great. Debut Ozeki, did what he had to do, was almost in the title race. But when you look at the last two matches, and this is only if you have these high expectations for him to be the next great thing, this would be a big red flag. The Kotonowaka match, Kotonowaka, obviously he was on fire. But he beat Mitakeumi in the way that Mitakeumi loses when he's going like 8-7 and just skidding by. He gets under the arms and he walks him right out, and there's not this fight in Mitakeumi to get out of it. Like Takakeisho knew when he was fighting Takayasu that he already lost once it went too far. And he kept fighting and fighting and fighting until he has nothing left, gets thrown on the ground, bloody nose. Mitakeumi does not have that in him. At least he has not shown it. That was a really poor loss in my mind to Kotonowaka. It cost him a chance at the championship. And it shows a shade of the pre-Ozeki Mitakeumi. Okay, we all have an off day. Here's where I'm going to get on him. We're entering into the final day of the tournament. And this has been one of the scrappiest tournaments I've ever seen. Guys were fired up. Tamawashi was fired up. Hoshoryu was fired up. Like, there was this energy in this tournament where everybody was, like, clawing and scraping and, even, like, Abi to get his Kachikochi on the last day, and you've got this chance for Wakatakakage to be a new champion, and Takayasu, is this finally going to be his time? And Shodai and Takakeisho are clawing just to stay in an Ozeki. And we're on this final day where all of this stuff is going on. And Mitakeumi is facing a fellow Ozeki on the final day, a guy that he has quite a history with, and he sidesteps. Maybe that's like not a big deal to most people, but that really, really ticked me off. It's disrespectful to Takakeisho, who's been just clawing and scraping regardless of the fact that this tournament is not going his way. It's disrespectful to the fans who are all amped up and hyped. He's new Ozeki facing the old Ozeki. This should be a match. This should be like, it doesn't matter that they're not in the tournament. This should be a match where they're going at each other for Ozeki pride. And it really left a bad taste in my mouth. And it shows me, like, how are you going to be Yokozuna if you can pull that on day 15 against a rival? Your mom's in the audience. Everybody's pumped up. It was so disrespectful. It just seemed like he didn't care. He wanted to get the envelopes, he wanted to get out of there, and he didn't really want a tough fight. Well, that's not Ozeki material. That's, middle of the pack guy who's got an 11... Middle of the pack guy who's got a 10-5 who really just wants that record. That is not an Ozeki. That is not someone who's going for Yokozuna. That's my opinion. I didn't like it. I hope to not see that ever again. And so, I started off thinking about this podcast with a lot of glowing things to say about him, and then the final 2 days, I'm not convinced. Obviously, he's strong enough and tough enough that he doesn't have to try all the time. I wish he would. I wish he would care just a little bit more about the role that he's in. Well, now I'm going to get off of that and get to the most exciting part of this whole tournament, which was, okay, so I'm not great at picking winners, but I will say that Wakatakakage has been on my radar for a very long time. Obviously, not only mine, a lot of people have had their eye on him, but there was something about him this tournament, and I would have never predicted him to win. No way. He was that much stronger. I don't know what extra weightlifting he's done or if he's got like some sort of new training partner, but he really packed on the strength. He wasn't necessarily that much bigger, but he was that much stronger, especially in the lower body. And I believe he said he was planning on working even harder on the lower body. So I can't imagine what could come from that. But I always knew Wakatakakage was capable of what he did. And it's amazing that it finally happened. He looked just so good. He looked so good. It was amazing. Now, I will say the final match with Shodai was so very interesting to me because Waka looked very, very nervous. I mean, you could see it on the sidelines. You could see it in the ring. You could see, like, as he's putting his fist down on the Shikiri stand, you could just see him like, come on, let's just do this. And I think that hurt him, but I also think that Shodai was out to prove something. And, it shows you sort of the chink in the armor for Wakatakakage. I don't know if he had a different opponent other than Takayasu, if he would have pulled it off or not. I have a feeling maybe not. And that's simply because I think Takayasu, it's too in Takayasu's head. He's had so much bad luck. And I call it luck. He's had a lot of bad outcomes, which, some of them have to do with him. But I just feel like Takayasu, he lacks the confidence that he can win. And just that little bit of doubt in his head was the difference between a win and a loss today. With that said, that crazy matrixy move that Wakatakakage pulled, I have never seen before, especially not in a playoff match. And I think it was so shocking that even he won the match and he was just standing there like, And then you see poor Takayasu with the, busted forehead and just the same old, I lost again look on my face. But Wakatakakage is the real deal. He's not, you gotta always worry about injuries, but he's not like the other three that are in Ozeki. Like, if he continues on. Shodai, talented, but head case. Takakeisho, very powerful, but has a lot of weaknesses. Mitakeumi just doesn't care enough, if you ask me. Wakatakakage has everything you need. It's just going to be a question of, can he keep getting stronger? Because he's going to have to. The grind, once you make it to Ozeki, wears down the strongest of men. And you either endure it and you survive it without getting like a million injuries, or you fall apart. So you never want to peak too early. I think this is the perfect time for him to peak. And I really wish there had been more time for the interview. I'm looking forward to perhaps Chris Sumo doing some more interviews with Wakatakakage, because I really couldn't get a grasp on his personality because the interview was kind of short and rushed because of the playoff, and he was a little shocked. I would love to see what sort of personality he would bring to Ozeki, but here nor there, he is looking like what we have been hoping for and waiting for, because the Ozekis, they all have a lot, like, none of them look like Yokozuna material to me, and Terunofuji might be gone sooner than we had hoped. So we really need these young guys to come up and be stable and be exciting, and Wakatakakage did that for us. I will say this, I'm not sure what your favorite way to watch sumo is, but I watched it on the NHK World Live. Boy, you could cut that tension with a knife. It's so much more exciting when you have to wait to see what's going to happen. So highly recommend, if you haven't watched it, to go to NHK's website and watch the live, because it's pretty cool. Okay. So I do think that Waka's the next great hope. He has to keep from getting injured. That's always a problem. And he obviously, like the loss to Shodai, the loss to Mitakeumi, there's some nerves in there, there's some youth in there. He will have to overcome that, or else, he's going to be a rising star that hits the bottom again before he can rise back up. But this is the time. This is the time to really show what you're made out of, and don't let the Japanese press crush you. Next, we have Abi. Now, Abi, I had predicted him to win the whole thing, so obviously I was quite wrong about that, and I'm even very surprised that he went 8-7. I thought 10-5 was going to be the lowest he would go. It looks like Abi is not as unflappable as I had believed, and it is what it is. I think that Abi didn't have as much fear in the last couple of tournaments because there was no expectation. Soon as he entered this tournament, there was talk of future Ozeki, title contention, all that stuff, and that's really the test. Can you survive all the pressure that comes next? It looks like he got a little flappable, and it was a rough go. He was looking good in the beginning, but then when you get to this, really the Wakatakakage, Mitakeumi, Ichinojo, there was a little bit of just sort of getting sloppy. The old Abi was showing up, and one of the big issues he has, which was always the reason why he couldn't even get to this point and stay here, is that, he's extending the arms, but if he gets too frantic, A, his footwork falls apart, but B, you can get inside, you can get under the armpits. And so it seemed like all of his greatest weaknesses started to show up, which is why him winning on the final day was such a big deal. First of all, he had Takayasu, who could have won the whole tournament if he won the match. And Abi would have dropped out of Sanyaku. Actually, he probably wouldn't have. He might have went just down to Komusubi. But he wanted to keep his spot. And he did what he had to do. And it shows that even though he was flappable, even though he was nervous, even though things didn't go the way they should, he won when he needed to win. So I'm hoping he builds from this. And 8-7 is not necessarily, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there was a lot of expectation on him. And I think there still will be. It might calm down a little bit, because now everybody's going to look at Wakatakakage and say, hey, he's our next great hope. But they're not going to forget Abi. And so maybe when the pressure comes off a little bit, he'll do another surprise 12-3 or win a tournament. But he has a lot more to work on than Wakatakakage does, because he's a pusher thruster. Same issues as Takakeisho, where, it goes off just a little tiny bit and you look like a fool. Because either you get under your armpits, or you trip on your own feet, or you go flying out, like somebody sidesteps you and you go flying out of the ring. Not having the versatility to grab the belt is a liability, and Abi could learn that. They were talking about how he was practicing it. If I were Abi, I would probably throw that into my repertoire. I wouldn't say that for everybody, because some guys, they try to change their style and it just wrecks their whole career. Abi's got a lot of physical advantage, really long arms, really long legs, a lot of flexibility. He's strong. I think he could really benefit from just a couple of belt techniques. People expect him to come in and, thrashing him, and then he grabs the belt. I mean, he could become, that's the next level for him. So I hope that's what he does. He should take his time, but I hope that's what he does. Next we have Takanosho, 4-11. I don't know what's going on with him. He didn't look injured. He didn't necessarily look like Shodai looked like a defeated man in those first 4 days. Takanosho might just be a hard read, but I look at it every match and be like, why are you losing? Like, what's wrong? So that's sort of a mystery. He could have a secret injury we don't know about. He could be recovering from COVID. It's too much of a up in the air situation to really know. So maybe he needs to go on the watch list. And either way, I'm not going to make any sort of comments on where I see him going next, because he looked pretty bad. If he stays in this situation, he's going to keep dropping and dropping and dropping. So I will reserve all comments for Takanosho until I see the next tournament and see what he's capable of. I just I have no guess because he did not look injured. So next we're going to go to Komusubi Hoshoryu. You know, that 8 and 7, it's just like Hoshoryu. He fought way harder and was in his wins, he was way more impressive. And even some of his losses, you know, they were hard fought matches. But this seems to be where Hoshoryu was stuck. On the plus side, he got an 8 and 7. So I think he's going to have to stay in Komusubi, but he'll at least go to Komusubi 1 East. But it would have been cool to see him rise in the same way that Wakatakakage did and to see those two at the final. But Hoshoryu just couldn't put it together. I don't know if it's nerves. Like, I don't want to even say like nerves. Almost like he's too excited. He's so excited to go in there and fight that he makes mistakes. And people use his energy against him. But, you know, he's bigger now. He's stronger. That's a big deal. I was actually shocked how much bigger he looked. And he's going to have his eyes set on Wakatakakage. I mean, that's the future clash right there. The two guys who came up around the same time. They're the next young hot thing. I don't know if, you know, Hoshoryu exercised the Asashoryu demons before this match, but, or before this tournament. But I think that he'll regroup. But I don't know that he's necessarily ready to do what Wakatakakage did. I don't think I would pick him, you know, to be a tournament winner quite yet. But we'll see. He's stronger. He's faster. He's got so many techniques. He's just got to get the headspace together and get the consistency. So we will see where that goes. Next is Daieisho. Surprising end for him. It felt like he was losing a lot. And losing in the ways that he shouldn't lose in, like for power and things like that. But somehow he scraped it out in the end and wound up with his Kachikochi. So that's really good because he's going to probably take the Komusubi spot. But Daieisho is looking a little worn out. The good thing for him is he is not lacking in spirit at all. He goes in there, gives 100% every day. So as long as he can keep his body pretty much intact, he's going to win matches. But I do think sort of the Komusubi spot is his ceiling. But that doesn't mean we can't get another surprise tournament win out of him. I mean, things are going to get really, really wacky with Terunofuji not being a stable force. And with Takakeisho not being his second. Like, we sort of had this thing going when Terunofuji was rising up, where Takakeisho was matching him. And that's falling apart too. So, we're really going to have this, you know, crazy who's going to win every single tournament, I think, unless Terunofuji can completely come back to normal. So Daieisho could squeak another one in, but this tournament doesn't have me convinced that he's in the best At least he's not in the best mental state. He's pretty consistent. But I don't know. I don't know if it's physical because he's always injured. So we'll see. We'll see with Daieisho, but he's at least going to go up a rank, which is cool. And we'll see if he has the big crash out or if he can endure. Next we have Uro, which is really sad because he's so fun. He's so fun. And they had an opportunity to give him a Sanyaku spot, and they chose not to. And it sounds like that was the right choice, unfortunately. I mean, I really, really like Uro, and I think the tournament is just so much better with him. Like, he's the Enho. Like, he's filling the void that Enho had left us. But he did not look good this tournament at all. He was beat up. Like, it wasn't just losing. He got beat up. But yeah, he's the guy who will stand up and smile after you, like, throw him 3 rows into the crowd. And he'll be like, oh, it's almost like he's like, thank you. And, you know, bows his head and keeps going. So he brings a joy and a fun unpredictability. Obviously, he was up too high for his ability level. And I think he probably knew that was going to be the case, considering how he talks about his sumo. How he talks about how it's basically luck, which it's more than luck, but that's how he characterizes it. But he's still incredibly fun to watch. He sells tickets with a 4-11. Well, he could drop down to Myogiryu 3, considering that Meisei, we'll get to Meisei. Wow, this is going to be interesting. He may not drop that far. It's really going to depend on how the committee feels about it, but I hope to just keep him around for a while, and I actually hope to see more of his exciting sumo come back once he's in a level that's a little better for competing. Because I think he can face some of the top guys, just not all of the top guys. I mean, if you see this, Takakeisho, Mitakeumi, Terunofuji before he got out, Wakatakakage, Abi, I just think it's a bit much. He's not ready to take on every single guy. But it's fun when he's down lower and he takes on like 1 or 2 of these guys. And then he might get a surprise win, or at least a surprise, near win where he makes one of these guys scared. So, we shall see, Uro. We still have time with you. Next is Ichinojo. He added a speedy Tachiai, which was interesting. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in his training sessions because you don't hear a lot about him off the dohyo, and we keep getting these new versions of Ichinojo. I'd love to see, like, what kind of training he is doing behind the scenes. But, he really, really, his sumo spirit has increased so much since the very first time that I saw him, which was probably like 3 years ago now. Let me think about this. Probably 4 years ago was the first time I saw Ichinojo. And he had the whole, Snorlax, Aoiyama thing where you didn't know which Ichinojo was going to show up. And, he did well for himself for a while. It didn't matter that he was inconsistent because he was one of the biggest guys, if not the biggest guy in the tournament. And then he had that Juryo stint, which I think he had a back injury that resulted in that Juryo stint. And ever since then, he's been hungry. He wants to win. I feel really bad for Hoshoryu when he pancaked him. He probably broke he didn't break some ribs, but he could have broke some ribs on Hoshoryu. But that's a move I had never seen Ichinojo pull before, so it kind of shows you, like, he really, really wants to win. I don't know where he goes from here, though. I mean, that 9-6 is pretty impressive. Let's see. He's probably going to have to take a Myogiryu 1 spot. Yeah, likely going to need to take a I will say that the Wakatakakage match against Ichinojo was one of my favorites. Like, Ichinojo wanted that win very, very badly. And to see Wakatakakage not only hang in there for a while and not get, like, all of his energy zapped by the smothering, but then to force him out with power, that was the first sign I had that Wakatakakage could go places. With the old Ichinojo, probably not, because you'd say, oh, he had an off day, but he was really going for that win, and Waka did some amazing power moves to get Ichinojo out. And if you don't have that match, I mean, then he has a 10-5, and we're looking at a very different situation. He's obviously not ready to give up the Sanyaku idea. So we will see Ichinojo. Next is Tamawashi, 7-8. Tamawashi has to feel disappointed with this result because he fought really, really hard and he won some really good matches. And it's funny, he's sort of the temperature check for what went on in this tournament. He's sort of the nice guy, you know, that everybody seems to like, and he seems to have this, like, calm personality. But when he really, really wants to win, he turns kind of nasty. And there was a couple of times where he just threw guys off of the ring and just swatted them off like it was no big deal. He looked like he really wanted more out of this tournament. And it just didn't. Like, when he beat Terunofuji, and he dominated him. That wasn't just a beat. That was like, whoa. He dominated him. He threw him off the ring like he was a rag doll, not like a huge dude. And I think he probably expected like he was going to go places after that, and didn't really work out for him. I mean, he did okay. 7-8's not bad. It's not going to change his position too much. But I think he wanted to be in it. You know, you beat Terunofuji. And this is before we knew that he was going to drop out. But you beat Terunofuji and you got to at least have in your head, I'm going to have an excellent tournament. And then it just fell apart for him. I don't think it was an injury, but he is the oldest guy left in the division. Could be stamina. Could be some sort of nagging thing. All it takes is just a little tweak and it's all over. So unfortunately for Tamawashi, he didn't quite get what he was looking for. But, you know, he's going for 4th place, I believe, on the all-time record for most appearances in a row without missing a tournament. So he's at least chasing history. He's going to be on history books. He's going to be on lists. These are lists that, you know, those Iron Man lists are hard to get on. So he'll be on them for a very, very long time, if, you know, not always. So he's got that going for him. But sometimes he fights like he's a 20-year-old and not a 37-year-old. So good luck, Tamawashi. I'm sorry it didn't work out better. But, you know, there's always a new tournament. Onosho, 6-9. Onosho is the guy who has potential, but the potential never seems to show up. He needs to do something in training that takes him to the next level. I actually was pretty surprised that he's kind of the same size as Takakeisho. He's a little bit taller, but they're almost the same weight. So the little bit of taller makes him look thinner, but he's about the same weight. And he's not as strong as Takakeisho. So it's kind of like, where are you going to go with this? If you can't overpower guys and knock them out in 3 blasts, then you got to have something else. You got to have a belt technique. You've got to have a nice, you know, sidestep that people don't see coming. Onosho doesn't have any of that. Onosho has his pushing and thrusting, and he goes in with that plan, and a lot of times he's flailing, and a lot of times his feet are all over the place, and, you're just going to keep getting results like this. Some tournaments he's going to be 10-5 because he was low enough in the ranking that he could beat everybody. Sometimes when you get high enough, you're going to be 6-9, and he could have been and should have been 5-10, but Terunofuji dropped out and he got the freebie. So, he's running out of time to be the young guy who, he has time. Yeah, he has time, but that time is running out. You're at 25 now. Once you hit like 26, 27, that's either where you're supposed to be making your move or you're just going to kind of hang around in the middle. I have not seen anything from Onosho that would suggest he's going to make a dramatic change. I wish in some ways they could switch stables and have a little extra coaching from different coaches. I'm not saying it's his coach's fault, but I'm saying the tough part about the sumo system is you have the coach that you have. So if there's a better coach out there for you, you're never going to meet him because you're in the system. And I wonder if he had some different coaching, somebody who could give him advice, if he could turn the corner. Because what he's doing now does not work. It works to, hang in there, but doesn't work to get to the next level. Which brings us to, to me, the shock of the tournament, but maybe not to everybody else. Meisei, 1-14. Yikes. He had to have been injured. I can't picture any other reason. I mean, he just showed up every day and it was like, what are you doing up there? I mean, some of the most injured guys don't get a 1-14. Maybe it's because most of them would drop out. I don't know, but there's not much I can say besides what just this is like the Onosho that was, I believe Onosho got 1-14. I don't think it was an 0-15. Forget about this. Do some extra training, move on. We have discussed how a bunch of people got COVID. We're not sure who. If he had gotten COVID and he just couldn't recover in time, that would explain it. Hopefully that is not a factor later on. And we just put this whole story basho behind us. We won't think about it again. Next we have Kiribayama, 10-5. So Kiribayama, I thought for a little while, was going to actually be in the tournament conversation. He beats Endo, Hoshoryu, Ichinojo, and he beats, where are we here? Wakatakakage. I mean, there's your tournament winner. Hokutofuji's always a tough match. I mean, some of these battles, should be easy for. It beat Mitakeumi. Somehow he ends up being like the quiet story because of how great Wakatakakage was, and Mitakeumi was, the new Ozeki. He did really, really well. Not only a 10-5, but the people he beat were the people you need to beat to move on. I'd like to see him have to fight. He beat Hoshoryu. I consider Hoshoryu, like, you beat him. That's a good thing, even if he's a little inconsistent. But Hoshoryu, Wakatakakage, Mitakeumi, his Ichinojo bout was another one of those intense ones. It was interesting because Kiribayama is a little bit of a mystery. He has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, but they don't always result in wins. So the fact that he got wins, decisive wins against really tough opponents, he should have been more elevated, but too much was going on. So I hope that Kiribayama is going to really make a splash in the next tournament, because if we don't have Hoshoryu and Wakatakakage. Maybe we have Kiribayama and Wakatakakage. So those three are the future, and they're sort of, the guys we want to do something big. We want them to be the 3 Ozeki. We want them to be the future Yokozuna. We want them to hone their skills. And, Kiribayama has a coach who should be able to show him exactly how to be the man. So keep an eye on Kiribayama for the next tournament, definitely. Next we have Endo, 8-7. I'm glad he got an 8-7. He was sort of the way he is. He's sort of an enigma because he is so talented. He has so much technique. And he was in, the tournament a couple of times, and then he puts together tournaments like this, and you're like, losing to Kiribayama. He got a freebie against Ishiura. I mean, I guess he basically lost to the people he should lose to, except for Ichinojo. But I don't know. He wasn't there for me. He has these great days where he'll get a hold of you, and it's like, take a video of that and put that in every sumo training stable in the country, and this is how you do the move. And then just days where he gets totally blasted out without even fighting back. So I don't know. Endo's sort of like Onosho for me in the sense that the results do not come consistently. Endo could be amazing with all of the different moves he has and all of the... You don't know how he's going to beat you. You really don't know. And I think he should be beating more top-level guys. So that's really all I can say about him. I'm glad he got an 8-7. He'll rise up. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight, Terunofuji if he comes back healthy and ready. Next we have Takarafuji, 6-9. This has sort of been what's happened to Takarafuji for a while now. He's up and down, up and down, up and down. He's in the twilight years of his career. There might be many reasons why he's sticking it out. One might just be simply he loves sumo and he would love to stay in sumo. Another could be Terunofuji. He knows Terunofuji only has so much time, and he's, part of the ceremony, and they're good friends. Maybe he wants to stick it out at least as long as Terunofuji. Excuse me. But the 6-9 is not the worst. He definitely didn't have the defense that he normally has. He was sort of weak. But he did enough. He's high enough. He'll be okay. But the question is, will we be getting more 6-9s till he crashes all the way down? Or are we going to start to see, once he goes down, let's see, 6-9. I'd probably go to Myogiryu 7 or 8. When he goes lower down, we start to see, 9-6. And he'll just keep doing what he does. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. Get in the way of any of the new guys to sort of show him the ropes. But I'm not worried about him. I think he's just hanging in there. Now, next is Ishiura. This was so heartbreaking to me. Because this was his highest rank ever, and then he gets hurt. And it was sort of the same injury that Takakeisho had, where it was a neck thing. And neck things, they're so complicated. They're hard to heal. They're hard to treat. They could linger for a long time, or if he's lucky, they don't. He did come back to the tournament. But it's so sad because I wanted to see what he could do. Now, it wasn't looking great. He only had 2 wins at first, but I don't know. I wanted to see what he could do, and it's really disappointing that he never really even got the shot. And now with this record, he might not fall that far. I'm not sure, but it's going to be hard to get that momentum again, to get that high up. Especially because he's not a young gun. He's been around for a while. I hope the injury heals. I hope it's not a nagging one. I really, really hope he can put it all together again and try again, because I was so looking forward to seeing what he could do at Myogiryu 5. Injuries are the worst. I hate injuries. So, good luck, Ishiura. Hopefully it all works out. Looking forward to talking about you in May. Next we have Hokutofuji. Very, very, very interesting tournament for him. It started off looking like, this is not going to be his tournament. And then out of nowhere, the strong, powerful Takarafuji or Hokutofuji that's capable of really beating the crap out of anybody just shows up. And that's the Takarafuji that John obviously loves, and could go back up to, Myogiryu 1, Sanyaku. It's been a while. He was a mainstay in Myogiryu 1 through 3 and always threatening Sanyaku for so long that it's been hard to see him fall and fall and fall. So this is a really good sign that maybe he's coming back. That it's not, he's not fading out of his glory. However, the tough part is his ceiling seemed to be up at the top, at the Myogiryu 1 area. So even if he can get back up there, the question is there anything more in the tank? We'll address that another day. But for now, it's good to see that the old Hokutofuji was in there. He was really making it tough for some guys. Pulls off a 9-6. He has some of the best matches because he will hit you with his head, and there will be blood everywhere, and he won't even break a sweat. The guy is tough as nails, and he makes everything very interesting. So, gonna see. It's very tricky where they might move people. He could get back to Myogiryu 3. It's possible. It all depends on how far they're gonna drop certain guys. Next, we have a surprise of the tournament. Only a surprise because he hadn't been living up to his potential for a little while. 11-4 Kotonowaka gets all the way to day 15 with a chance to be in a 3-way playoff. Very, very tough stuff. And it does show you how Hoshoryu, like Abi made sure he won on the last day. Hoshoryu made sure he secured his spot. And that was a big factor as to why Kotonowaka was not going to take this. But had Kotonowaka won, he would have been in the 3-way playoff, since both Takayasu and Wakatakakage lost, which would have been super exciting. However, 11-4 being in the tournament on the last day is nothing to sneeze at. Here's somebody who, he was supposed to be the next up-and-comer. He gets injured. It throws everything off. If he can stay healthy, now we have Wakatakakage, Kiribayama, Hoshoryu, Kotonowaka. We're going to see a nice big group come up and take some of these spots that are going to be vacant in the next couple of years. So, very good thing for Sumo if Kotonowaka can keep this going. And I'm sure the Japanese press and the Japanese sumo fans are looking forward to having a variety of guys to root for, because there was Kakuryu, Hakuho, Hanama Fuji. You had all these Yokozuna for so long. Kisa no Sato, although it didn't last very long. You had all these different guys. You could have your favorite Yokozuna. It wasn't, I like the Yokozuna. So it'd be very exciting to get back to that again. I don't know if we ever will, but hopefully. I have to take a deep sigh. A very deep sigh before I talk about Takayasu. Takayasu. He has found a way to make heartbreaking losses worse each time. Each time. When you think you've seen like the saddest thing you could see, he one-ups it. The thing is, I'm not surprised. I wish I could say I was surprised, but part of that is his own demeanor. He shows that he doesn't expect to win. And maybe, it's just that little bit of edge. That little bit of not having the confidence that's killing him. I mean, he went undefeated. 1, 2, 3. He was 10-0 before he lost to Wakatakakage, which is poetic. Comes back, beats Mitakeumi and Takakeisho, and that was a pretty epic match. I mean, he really made Takakeisho work for that. And then he loses to Shodai and Abe. Shodai is the one who's supposed to be lacking the confidence. And on one hand, I feel really bad for him. This was his chance. It slipped away yet again. But on the other, he was given extra chances this time. Between, he loses to Wakatakakage, which is a telling tale right there. But then, even after he's basically knocked himself out of being in control of his destiny, he gets another shot. He gets the playoff because Wakatakakage lost. And that was really the best way for it to end. Who was the better fighter, Wakatakakage or Takayasu? With that being said, Takayasu had Wakatakakage. When that whole thing happened, I was so shocked. I'm like, I don't understand how Waka didn't go out. Takayasu did that final push, and I expected to see Wakatakakage go flying out of the ring, and somehow he did not, and then Takayasu was on the ground yet again for another heartbreaking, sad loss. But in this instance, he was given so many opportunities. He did his best. Waka did his best. I would hope, but I am not a professional athlete. So, I'm saying this, and I sound like a jerk saying it, to be honest. I would hope with all of these hard losses that he's had, that he would just have screw this moment and just say, the next time I get in the ring, I'm going to dominate. And I almost felt like that's how he started this. Okay, I've had a lot of tough losses. This time I'm just going to go in and win so much that it's not even going to be close. He needs to do that. If he's ever going to win a title, he needs to go into a match where he just says, or into a tournament where he just says, I'm going to beat everybody so definitively that nothing is going to take it away from me. And he has so much experience with it going wrong that I would hope that he would just take the opposite approach and say, well, it can't get any worse. Let's see what happens. Instead of getting discouraged. But that's somebody who's not a professional athlete talking, so it's probably a bunch of crap. But I feel like that is the only way, is to do the reverse psychology, because how do you come back if you don't have that attitude? After losing again and again and again in these heartbreaking manners. And then it was so sad to see his, the cheering section, his family. He probably feels really bad letting them down. But it is what it is, unfortunately. For Takayasu, winning a cup is really the only thing that matters, because him being 12-3 means nothing. He used to be Ozeki. So being 12-3 as Maegashira 7 doesn't mean anything. He needs to win the title. I think he should just go into every single tournament like, this is going to be my time, until his time runs out. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of stamina he has. You have to think he has some sort of stamina, or else he would have quit by now after all the heartbreaking losses. This one will either be the end of his effort, or it's just going to spur him on to be like, okay, I'm going to go in, Zensho Yusho. No one's beating me this time. I mean, he just lost 3 times. Waka, Shodai, Abi, these are winnable. I don't know about Waka. He's pretty impressive. Shodai, well, he needed the win. Abi also needed the win. So the circumstances were against him in that sense. But he can beat any of these guys. So I feel for him. It stinks. But he's just got to get up and try again. He's got to win a tournament. It's the only thing that matters. Next we go to Maegashira 7, a totally different story. Okinoumi, 5-10. I think he's pretty injured. He's less injured this tournament than he was at least he showed less of the injury this time, but I think he might be hanging on by a thread. Once you get to this age and you get an injury, it's just harder and harder to motivate yourself to do the training you need to do, to fight for 15 days, to put in every ounce that you've got. And all these guys were so intense. They wanted to win so very badly. You just can't let your foot off the gas at all. So I think Okinoumi's stuck between sort of the age making it harder to heal, but also the injury itself is probably taking away a lot of his stamina. So we'll have to see if he can bounce back in the next tournament. Always a question with, is there enough time to heal? And I'm pretty sure they're going to be doing tours again. I think that starts in the summer. Once that starts, you're going to see some guys probably not be able to continue because they don't have the recovery time in between. Next we have Chiyoshoma. Chaotic, crazy twist and turn Chiyoshoma. Unfortunately for him, his tricks are either being read or they're not as effective. He actually did not Hanka for, the first 7 matches or something like that. So he was trying to be on the up and up. Maybe that threw him off. Maybe just being able to randomly put a Hanka in helps him. Not that I'm a fan. But I think it's just catching up to him a little bit. People are getting a little used to the fact that he's unpredictable in the way that he's unpredictable. If that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes sense. I expect that, as he drops down, he'll probably have another good tournament again. He's very, very spry and very, very, he seems healthy and he seems energetic despite the fact that he's sort of in the later part of his career. So I expect that he will bounce back again unless, injuries get in the way. Next we have Sadanoumi. He tried really hard, but it was not to be. I don't think he can keep up with a lot of the people of today. Let's see. Who did he beat? Wakamotoharu. That's a pretty good win. Tobizaru. Tobizaru is very unpredictable. Kotoeko. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. Ishiura was injured. Takanosho was a disaster. It's probably not his time. He's probably going to need to be lower down to win matches because the competition's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. So we'll have to see. Tobizaru really surprised me. 9-6. It's been a long time since he's actually put together a winning record like that. And he was very, very focused this time. It was a little bit different. He was still his flying monkey self, but it was sort of like he had some pinpoint precision going on. He was doing all sorts of stuff. He was doing the belt, pushing and thrusting. He was doing his weird stuff. But I'm trying to remember. It was with the Ichinojo match when he goes circle around and around and around. And that was just an example of Tobizaru being his weird self. He is the guy that I kept saying, is he kind of like an imposter? Like, does he belong here? I think he's shown that he does. I think he's just so wild that he has to fine-tune it. And once he fine-tunes it, 9-6 is nothing to sneeze at. It was a pretty good tournament for him. It'll be exciting to see what he does when he goes higher up. I do enjoy seeing people like Tobizaru fight, the big guys. But at the same time, I don't know that he's capable of beating them. But he showed me a different side of him this tournament. I think if he controls the chaos, he could squeak in there. He could make it up to Myogiryu 3. Next we have Wakamotoharu, the brother of Wakatakakage. 9-6. He's doing a nice, quiet upward momentum. He's a very different fighter than Wakatakakage. And he's very interesting. He's got this sort of calm, steady presence. He's very good on the belt. He's sort of like the standard sumo guy, like the standard belt sumo guy. But he's also got a very quiet approach. It'd be interesting to see, is he going to keep posting these sort of 8-7, 9-6, and slowly rise up to the top? I don't see him as like the splashy type. But I have a hard time pinning down, how good is he? Because he has such a quiet approach. But it had to be so awesome for him to congratulate his brother at the end there. It's only going to motivate him further to, want to be towards the top with his brother. I think that's super cool. To have brothers, both in the top division, that both are very talented and capable of going places. No offense to Hinaumi, but, he got himself in trouble. So, we will see with Wakamotoharu. I don't want to say for sure what I think he's going to do, but I think he could quietly keep putting up numbers like this and suddenly find himself near the top. Next we have Shimanoumi. He was pretty fired up this tournament. He was very aggressive. He wanted to make, he wanted a Kachikoshi for sure. He just wanted to start moving forward because he's had a lot of setbacks in the last couple of tournaments. I think John is assuming that his leg is healed. I believe his leg is healed. That injury was a big problem for him, but he's a tough guy. He's like in the trenches, and he was able to do his thing, presumably because the injury has healed. So we'll have to see how far up he can go. He's got quite an uphill battle in terms of, once you get up to 6, now we're starting to see, the tough guys showing up. But I think he's got more in him than Myogiryu 10. It'll be interesting. So Aoiyama, very surprising. It's not like we would know any of this because it's their personal business, but got Japanese citizenship. So he is going to stay in the country. He is going to be a coach, which is super cool. you always worry a little bit about the foreign guys, because if they don't do that, then you'll never see him again. You won't see him on the ringside, and they'll just be sort of a figment of the past. He did what he had to do to win matches. Obviously, it didn't work out with a 7 and 8, but that's not terrible. But he wasn't as aggressive, not as much grunting and sort of destruction as the typical Aoiyama. Maybe he was just, like, personality-wise, he was a little bit more low-key. He's been injured, so, he's just gonna keep fighting injured. But he didn't seem as his usual aggressive self. It was a shame that he lost to Daieisho on the last day, but maybe he just needs to regroup. 7 and 8, not too bad. We're not going to lose him. He's not going to Juryo, and now we know we're not going to lose him to going overseas, so that's pretty cool. Next we have Myogiryu. He really tried, is what I can say. He tried to make it a good basho. I think it's falling apart for him. I think his age is catching up to him. That sort of really awesome tournament he had where he trained in the interstable practice for the first time, it was almost like that was his last hurrah. I'm not saying he's done for, but he looks like he's struggling just to get up there. And that could be a combination of, like, the physical pain, and there's a mental component of fighting through the physical pain, that after a while you just sort of like, can I do this today? Do I want to do this today? I think he tried very, very hard, and it's a shame to get a 7 and 8 with how hard he tried, but yeah, I think we're looking at a slide. This might be a guy who's headed in the wrong direction. Next we have Terutsuyoshi. I'll say this. He looks about the same as he always does. He loves his leg picks. And in one case, his leg pick turned into a thigh pick. He is trying to put it together. He's trying to come up with a consistent plan. It's very difficult when you're a small guy who's looking for the element of surprise all the time. In this tournament, it worked out. In this tournament, he got his Kachikoshi, but it could have easily gone the other way. I think he just needs something. He needs something to put it all together. Some sort of focus, some sort of training that gives him a vision of who he's going to be as a fighter. And I almost feel like, I don't want to get too crazy with this, I almost feel like Tobizaru almost found the answer this time. How to be a chaotic fighter, but be pinpoint focused at the same time. If Terutsuyoshi could do that, he could be in some conversations. I'd love to see him be in the, Kiribayama camp. I'd love to see him, messing around with the upper guys, but he's got to do more than the leg pick. The leg pick's got to be something you bring out for holidays, for holiday parties. He's got to come up with some strategies. Maybe he over strategizes. Maybe he needs to make it more simplistic. I'm not sure. But for this tournament, it worked, so that's all that matters. Next is Kotoeko. He shocked me. What happened? This is the Kotoeko I thought existed. Strong guy with, all these different moves, who was going to make a big splash. And for the last 3 or 4 tournaments, he just looked like a guy a strong guy who's like, I'm going to do sumo. And all of a sudden, this tournament, it all came together. He was really in those fights. He got bloodied up a couple of times. He was doing reversals at the edge. He overpowered a couple guys. I was like, whoa, this is the Kotoeko I expected to see. I wonder if he did some sort of new weight training or something changed behind the scenes. But this is the Kotoeko I always expected to see. I'm glad that I saw it because I was starting to wonder, was I wrong? Was he not the fighter I thought he was? But this is the guy that I want to see going forward. This is who I think he is. So I hope he has found the answer, because he could be in conversations with some of the upper guys if he gets a little bit stronger. He does need to get stronger in the lower body. But he's very exciting. He could do some cool things if he could get out of the basement of Myogiryu. So we will see. We will see. Next we have Chiyotairyu. He's performing as best as he really can, I think. He basically does the, I'm going to try to blast you out on the tachi-ai, and if I can't, then I'll yank you and drop you. He pulled a hanka. That's always a bad sign. Chiyotairyu is not the hanka type. So he is getting desperate. I mean, 7 and 8 is enough to keep him around, but we are definitely seeing sort of the twilight of his career, I think. Same with Chiyomaru. He put in some good fights. But he's just not up to snuff right now. And I don't think he's gonna be. I think he's doing the best he can for whatever reasons he's hanging on, and we'll be lucky to see him stick around the upper division. He's been to Juryo a couple of times. He's going to... There's some space down below for him. So he'll probably be around next tournament, but yeah, I don't see much coming out of him that's any different. At least he's always smiling. At least he's always putting in the effort. So I'll give him that. Chiyo no Kuni. This is just going to be a guy whose career is never going to be what it could be because of injuries. He really started off great. 4-1. I thought, oh, this is it. He's going to make a splash. Just like when he first came back from Juryo, I thought, okay, he's healed enough. He's going to do things. I wasn't thinking like tournament wins necessarily, but he's going to do things. And then all of a sudden, the shoulder gets all busted up. He's got to be out for several matches. Comes back in with a chance to save his record, and it just falls apart. This is just one of those sad cases of a wrestler who had so much potential, but injuries are going to keep him from achieving what he needs to achieve. Next is Konosho. He's quietly putting things together. He has had injury issues. He's gone up and down a little bit. He was somebody who was supposed to be up there with Kotonowaka and all the guys have been talking about, and it just hasn't all been together. This 9-6 is a really good start. He is at Myogiryu 14, so I don't want to get too excited because he had a lot of, easier competition. Got to see if he can stay healthy. Got to see if the motivation is there. I'd love to see more before I made any final judgments on that. Next we have probably the guy who, not quite as sad as Takayasu, but pretty sad. 7 and 8. 7 and 8. He started off so well. I thought, okay, this time he's going to get his Kachikochi, he's going to start going up. And then it all falls apart, just like it always does. And then he's so close, and then he's got to go into the final day, 7-7, loses. I mean, he looked better. He looked better than he had in previous tournaments, but that's not much. That's not saying much. It's not like he's suddenly less injured. So he's sort of in the Chiyono camp in that if he could have kept himself from, I don't want to say kept himself, but if he could have stayed healthy, he was in the Aoiyama camp. He could have been up there competing with, the Takakeishos of the world, and instead he just keeps losing. I don't know if he's done enough to win or to stay out of Juryo. We'll see. We will see. So, unfortunately, Takayama has not defeated the injury curse and is looking at the basement yet again. Speaking of cursed individuals, Aqua, his sumo was bad. Ugh. He even tried a judo move at one point and, fell. It's as if he had some success with the judo moves once and tried to keep going with them, and they're just not working. He might be injured. A lot of times you find out after the tournament, oh, this guy had this injury, that injury, but it almost makes you wonder, why did you try certain moves if your body couldn't do that? I don't have a good feel for him in terms of, are there other things he can do with an injury? Lots of guys make adjustments. So, if the judo style isn't working because your back is all screwed up, could you try some other things? I don't know. We're going to have to get the report on Aqua. Here is probably one of the sunniest, brightest spots of the tournament, outside of the most amazing finish in quite some time. Tochinoshin, 9-6. I did not see this coming. He tried a lot of different things to win. He did knock a couple guys silly, which is something you got to watch out for with him, but at least they always know that shoulder's coming or that forearm is coming. He tried a lot of different ways to win, and that, it was sort of like, okay, I'm strong, I'm powerful, what can I do that doesn't hurt my knees? And he applied that very, very well, and he did he did make Terutsuyoshi look really silly. That was like the equivalent of the Endo, where he picked him up like a baby. I mean, Terutsuyoshi's upside down. I almost expected him to pick him up and power drive him or something in wrestling. But he was good enough, more than good enough. First Kachikoshi in over a year, I think. And then you add an extra win for good measure. It's not good in the sense that now he'll get tougher competition, but hey, if he's figured out a way to keep going, that's awesome. I do not know, I do not suspect, based on the fact that he has a wife and child in Georgia, that he will be going for Japanese citizenship. I believe he will go back to Georgia. So we want him to stick around as long as we possibly can. And this 9-6 is going to assure us of that. I want to see. I don't know what they'll do. They've been very good to him as far as not dropping him too low. So maybe they'll just put him in Myogiryu 13, which would be good. Next we have Nishikigi. Back to the upper division. 9-6. Prove that he should be back. he showed that he's good enough for the bottom. And I expect, he's going to move up. And he's probably going to struggle a little bit. But hey, he's done what he's needed to do to keep himself from going back to Juryo. And I think that's where we're at with Nishiki. Then we have Kotokuzan. He was not quite ready to be in the upper division. You could tell by the result was 7-8. He had some good matches. He had some okay matches. And he had some, you're not ready for the big time kid matches. Although he's not a kid. If he goes back down to Juryo, which I suspect he will, maybe he just needs a little bit more fine-tuning. Next we have Kageyaki. Oh, Kageyaki. He almost looked like he was a little bit better. He starts off, he's 4-1. Thought, okay, maybe he's worked out whatever the kinks are. And then it just fell apart. He's just, whatever's wrong with him, he has not figured out. It continues. He is kind of a mess. And now he's headed right back down to Juryo. I would hope that he's going to figure it out. I would hope that going down to Juryo is a motivating factor to work harder. But we don't exactly know what's wrong. We don't exactly know why he's fallen apart. So unfortunately, we have to say goodbye already, Kageyaki. And finally, we have Ichiyamamoto. He almost did not pull this off. He had a fantastic finish to the tournament, a fantastic second week, but a disastrous first week. He's got an Abi-like body, but the chaos of a Tobizaru. I don't think he's put everything together, which makes it hard for him to determine where he's going next. Like, it almost seems like how people react to him is going to determine whether he wins or loses. At least at this stage, they're going to get used to him. So it's good that he pulled off the 8-7. He'll go up a little higher. Hopefully he's learned something from this tournament. But he won't be here long if he doesn't sort of pull it all together. And that concludes the upper division. The special prizes were Fighting Spirit Kotonowaka, Fighting Spirit Takayasu. I don't know how I feel about that as Takayasu. I mean, it is $20,000, so you can't be upset about that. But boy, it's not the trophy. And then Wakatakakage gets a technique prize on top of the fact that he got the trophy. So he's having a very good day. As far as Juryo, Oho, Azumaru, Hitonoumi on the way back up. Midorifuji with a 12-3. He could possibly come back up. It's been a while since we saw him. I'm really, really hoping that he got all of his injury stuff taken care of, because he was really exciting and really fun and had a lot of good technique, and then just that injury killed him. I mean, you get a hernia, and I don't know if he's even gotten the surgery. It's hard to fight with a hernia. I mean, that affects almost everything you're going to do. So I hope he has resolved that. And then we'll see a Midorifuji who can really fight. But anyway, thanks for listening to a second show. And I hope you all greatly enjoyed this tournament. It was probably one of the most exciting tournaments I've seen in a very, very long time. That fight between Takayasu and Wakatakakage is going to be in my memory for a very long time. Especially if Wakatakakage goes on to do great things. We'll always remember where it started. So, I'm signing off for the Stormy Basho. Can't wait to talk to you all in May. Peace out.